Good to see you, man. Thank you. I usually get better applause than that. How's everyone this morning? It's always great to be home. Every time I'm here, I always feel like I'm home, so thank you. I'm going to do something different than I usually do. I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to ask questions, and we have one of the most amazing panels put together. So I'm going to ask our panelists to come on out, which they're here already, and I'm going to ask them some questions. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you for being here. So everyone in this room knows who's on this stage, but why don't we introduce ourselves?
Larry Cuculic, Best Western. Hello, AAHOA. Good morning.
I'm Julie Arrowsmith, G6 Hospitality. Good morning.
George Limbert, Red Roof. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, AAHOA. Keith Pierce from Sonesta.
My name's Geoff. I'm with Team Wyndham. And we've been doing this since 1989, as I was saying behind stage. This is the largest team we've ever had at 100 plus. I think we're at 103 for the next 5 days here.
Congratulations.
Wow.
Yeah, that's great. So we're going to ask some really important questions, but before we do that, one of the things that I've always admired about AAHOA is how generations inspire each other. So I'm going to ask the panel, who's the one person that inspired you? Who wants to take that first?
I'll go. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to jump in, and I think this is appropriate given the generation comment. So my inspiration comes from my father, and he was the publisher of Lodging Hospitality for 25 years and introduced me to the greatness of this industry. So I thank him for that.
Great.
And I'm gonna break the rules slightly, and I'm sorry, we're 2 minutes in and I'm already breaking the rules. Two people who inspire me. One is my grandfather, Greek immigrant, also a franchisee in Ohio.
Oh, wow.
Owned several hotels, was a franchisee, came to this country with nothing in his pocket, and worked his way and educated his children, and look at where I am today, right? And then second, I'm a girl dad. My 4-year-old daughter inspires me every single day. She wants to be a CEO as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Great.
She can do it, too. My inspiration comes from my grandfather. He was a foster child, young. His parents died. He got a high school degree and then just went on into the West Texas oil fields and was a self-made man and was incredibly hard worker, constantly learning, and never met a stranger, and absolutely devoted to his family. So I just hope I can emulate those traits as well.
Here you go. I too am violating the rule.
Two lawyers breaking the rules.
That's right. When you pose that question, I thought that's like asking who's the greatest of all time in basketball. Kind of like, it's not one person, and we all have our backgrounds, and so many people mold what we do. So I have a list of 4, but they're quick. My dad, he was a bricklayer in the steel mills of Gary, Indiana, taught me dedication and hard work. I played basketball at West Point. Coach K taught me teamwork. My first boss, Lieutenant Colonel Szymanski, taught me professionalism and the importance of being able to write well. I thought it was something that we all need to learn at a very early age. And the last one was Colonel Tom Lane. He was the first judge I practiced law before as a prosecutor. Judge Lane taught me about making sure you treat everybody with dignity, respect, and ultimate fairness.
All right.
Wow. If there was one person...
Ballotti gets one.
If there's one person that inspires me daily, Anthony, it's the woman many of you have met that I've been with for 40 years, and that's my wife. In that, every day, she and my oldest daughter, who also many of you have met at a past AAHOA, who's actually was due yesterday. I know a lot of you have looked at me when I've taken out a phone and said, why are you taking out your phone? I keep looking, I left it behind. Keep looking at text messages because this is our first grandchild.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Keith just had a grandchild the other day.
Did.
Roman.
Roman.
Yeah. But anyway, my wife and my daughter wake up every day, and they run a foundation called Cranberry Sunset Farm, which is a magical, Cranberry Sunset Farm, a magical organization that some of my team here in the room have visited, where they put 100, mostly children with autism, but increasingly other disabilities, cerebral palsy, on horseback, on horses that they rescue. Whenever I'm having a bad day at work, and I think I need to be inspired, seeing the face of a child, seeing the face, more importantly, of a parent who is putting a child that may never walk again on the back of that horse is what inspires me daily and is what has kept me with that woman for the last 40 years, despite the cost of 40 horses.
Wow, and that's what it's all about. Those are beautiful stories. So my next question, before I ask the question, I have to ask the audience, how many people in the room use ChatGPT? Okay, how many people have no idea what it is? Okay, so the question is, and maybe one of you can explain a little bit about what ChatGPT is. So how does ChatGPT, how do you think it's going to influence our industry going forward? Anyone?
I mean, I had not really paid attention to ChatGPT until several months ago when my kids' school sent a message saying, hey, this is how we're seeing it used in the classroom. Let's make sure we harness it for good. So I kind of started paying attention a little bit at that point in time, started asking around the office, and you start realizing, wow, there's a lot of usage here that I had no idea. And working with our IT team right now, they're really looking at how to get that power harnessed. I think any kind of AI is absolutely the future of all industries, not just hotels. So, but it's definitely in the early stages in some respects. So there's definitely a lot of risk. The pace of technology, of course, is kind of going faster than what we can really get our arms around. I'm sure the lawyers are kind of freaked out a little bit.
Well, this lawyer isn't. I look at it as a calculator for words.
Yeah.
Right? So it is here. Google came out with, I think, Bard. I mean, this is the future. How it's going to affect our industry specifically, I think first and foremost, customer reviews. I think customer reviews will start to be written through ChatGPT, maybe automated, and so it will be very difficult for us moving forward to try to decipher what review was real and what review wasn't. Now, we already have that problem today, so it's going to make it, it's just going to enhance it even more. So it's going to present some challenges, but again, like a calculator for words, everybody was skeptical of the calculator when it first came out, and now we can't live without it. So I think it's going to become integral and part of our society.
I couldn't agree more. The issue that on reviews, and all of us, and all of you, we always talk about QA and reviews and the importance of customer service scores, and you talk about it all the time on your shows in terms of guest reviews. You can't hide from those reviews. There was a story in Skift yesterday. Did anybody see that Skift article about how Google Maps could become the next killer app because of what George is talking about? The power of reviews. Google, I'm looking for the top 5 hotels. You pick your city that I'm in, and you hope because of your review score that you come up. We know in our company that if you are 7 or above on a 1 to 10 score on your overall satisfaction rating, your RevPAR has been growing post-COVID at 2x the rate it's growing at those hotels rated 7 and below. So there was I don't know how many people had a chance to attend yesterday's session. It was an AAHOA learning session right upstairs on artificial intelligence inspired digital marketing. It was an incredible session, and it was all about just what we're talking about right now. And if it's repeated, I would suggest that every one of you try to go back to that session. I don't know, is it repeated? I know Michael Goldschmidt, you were there. Leanne, you were there. Arpit, you were there. It was a really well-run session, but this is coming at us so fast and so furious. To Julie's point, our kids are talking about it. We don't know what it is. They're writing the introduction speech for Julie Arrowsmith. It's probably a better speech than you could write yourself about yourself in terms of all of your achievements.
I don't know what the teams.
No, but it is amazing. We've been using it for years, Anthony, in our call centers in terms of, I think we're all comfortable right now talking about a problem with a chatbot. We weren't years ago, but if I don't have to wait online for that customer service agent to answer my question when I have an easy issue on a password reset or a customer service problem. I mean, the number of ways that I think all of us hoteliers are going to be using ChatGPT and AI is something we all need to educate ourselves to Julie's point.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that as an industry, we're typically slow to adopt new technologies. And in many applications, when you think about where the chat AI can apply itself, it will take the place of a human. And I think that we should be careful with that because we are in the people business. And I know what frustrates me the most is when I try to call and I can't get a human on the phone. And as a hospitality industry, I think we have to be thoughtful about the way we introduce that application, and there's definitely opportunities for it.
But if you were trying to reset your password, would
Got
you be
it.
okay?
Thoughtful,
Yeah.
thoughtful. I'd be okay. But if it becomes, full scale, painful, and we'll replace people, and we're trying to bring people into the industry.
Which hopefully AI is something that's smarter than what we've had so far. So it'll, if it works right, it'll find that balance of, okay, this person needs a person versus the machine can figure it out.
So Larry, you have an opinion?
He's probably been using it all this time.
My opinion is you have to be careful because it's not your chosen words. And everyone has a personality and everyone writes in a particular frame of mind and their own way of expressing themselves. We all get the reviews and we see them and it almost looks like somebody's cutting, pasting a bad review. And then we all see where somebody sends, we respond to the review and they come back and say, boy, I just got the standard, I'll call it corporate answer to my review. So we have to be careful with regard to it. It's not our chosen words. It's really kind of almost a form of plagiarism. And so be careful if you use it. Also consider that the words you use have consequences. If you say to someone and it chatbots you and it gives you the words, I am sure that you will be successful if you follow my guidance. That's almost a warranty of success as opposed to saying, wishing you the best of luck. So, it can write something for you that may have consequences, so just be careful. They're not your chosen words. And I'm not a fan. I find it harder to amend someone else's written word. Julie says she's easier amending. I'd rather write my first draft myself.
Yeah, and I think to everyone's point, this is the hotel business. This is the business of hospitality. So these things should help us do our job, shouldn't do our job. And I think that's a good point. So on to another question that may be a little bit easier, or actually harder. How much has VRBO and Airbnb influenced the way guests travel, just in general, and also to hotels?
Yeah, I'll jump in, and look, this is a alternative accommodation strategy that has been in place for at least 15 years, and I can recall when Airbnb first hit the market, and there was a lot of anxiety and a lot of other executives talking about how it's going to impact our business. I will say that we have all enjoyed strength after the pandemic, certainly through our ADRs and RevPARs. But Airbnb in 2022, their revenues grew by 40%. It's a $9 billion company, and they spend $1 billion on advertising every year. So when you think of our performance as an industry over the last 3 years, most of it has been in rate, not so much in occupancy. And we really have to kind of reconcile the fact that there is alternative opportunities out there. And our guests are paying more, and we're delivering less. And sooner or later, that's going to come, for a day of reckoning for us. And if there are good alternatives in Airbnb, they're going to continue to steal market share from us. So I think that there are, certainly a force to be reckoned with.
I think it's influenced us negatively, certainly with illegal short-term rentals, which AAHOA, AAHOA, IFA are all advocating against. I mean, those are something that are really a top legislative issue. But it's also, and you said it yesterday as we were preparing for this session, Anthony, influenced us as so positively as brands, as hoteliers. When you said that renting a room has been around since the parable of Mary and Jesus trying to check in to deliver, Mary and Joseph trying to deliver Jesus. VRBO, Home Away, and gee whiz, Airbnb, when they arrived, they had better websites. They had better functionality. Their websites were mobile optimized. Ours were not. Their apps were better than ours. It has really made the brands think hard about the importance of our booking app, which I think for all of us up here is the fastest growing channel we have. Yeah. Making sure that we can compete from a technology standpoint. You said it yesterday, it's a technology company more than anything else.
I think it's pushed us to get better. I think it's pushed us to get better from a technology perspective, but also from a service perspective. You have to realize the human experience when someone checks in that we can give that most of them don't. And it's creating that experience and that welcoming effect that makes us realize how important we are as an industry. And I think that's our greatest advantage is the personal service that we provide at our hotels that they don't.
Yeah, and I think people, when we talk about service, everybody's like, we need these training programs and that training programs. Usually what changes your entire stay is a word or a moment or I'll get that and exceeding our expectations. And we do that and they can't.
We have so many more opportunities to interact with our guests than they do, right? It's when they check in, it's at breakfast, it's the housekeeper who says hello. It's all those personal interactions I think make a difference.
I think there's a lot of segments, though, from a demand standpoint. And there's a place for the Airbnb VRBO, and there's a place for the business travel. As a business traveler, I'm not going to choose a VRBO. I just want kind of my brand that I know what to expect. And
where do you stay at?
Yeah, several places.
Okay.
And many Motel 6s, too.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
Oh, yeah.
I set you up.
Motel 6s are everywhere. We got a couple places they don't fit. But I think that, and then there's the place for the Motel 6 and the Studio 6 where it's where they need to be. It's the accommodation that they want. And, it really, I will say, I think another thing with VRBO is guests are a little bit more self-sufficient in a VRBO scenario. It's changed the fact that they want to just go in and kind of make themselves at home, and they don't need a concierge, and they don't need, an F&B kind of restaurant, and they just kind of want to be left alone a little bit, and that's a different stay. So.
Would you agree, Julie, that Airbnb in a way has helped your franchisees and small business owners raise their rate? I mean, when you look at the Air DNA, a couple things. The minimum length of stay is a lot longer than probably.
That's right.
And the ADR is probably a lot higher. And the cleaning fees and the service charges and the full transparency of that stay, I would argue, in our select service business has probably helped. I mean, what do we all know? Our average daily rates are at historic levels. Yeah. Our ability, everyone in this room's ability to continue to raise those average rates, if they are in any way, shape in your market and competitive.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And I think what's interesting, too, is how much those extra fees that hotels in the past have kind of gotten dinged on of resort fees. And, so, those Airbnb fees that they're tacking on are pretty hefty.
Very interesting. I just learned a lot of stuff right there. So, post-pandemic, what is the biggest change that surprised you coming out of the pandemic? What's something that stuck that we didn't expect?
Look, I think that, post-pandemic, we've now confronted a war. We've confronted inflation. We've confronted, macroeconomic issues with bank failures. And the performance in the industry just continues to strengthen. And it's remarkable how strong and resilient this industry is. I mean, when we think about the pandemic, it was 3 years ago. We were all sitting in our homes thinking that, the world was coming to an end. And, every Amazon box that showed up at the front door, we were scrubbing it because we thought we were going to get sick, right? And here we are today. And this year will probably prove to be one of the strongest years in the industry. And 2019 was the strongest. And 2020 was the worst. So really remarkable how resilient the industry is.
You asked about what surprised us that stuck. And I would say for our team, what stuck is that hot breakfasts at Days Inns and Super 8s really aren't a driver of quality or your average daily rate. Not having to, that was a brand standard back pre-COVID. We weren't all sure, and I don't think everyone else in this room was sure about competitively whether we needed to bring that hot breakfast back post-COVID when you didn't have to, as Keith said, scrub. Were you really scrubbing packages?
My wife was.
So that, one of the things that surprises me is that our hotels, most of the people in this room had a better 2021 than they had 2019, a better 22 than they had at 2021. And when I asked most of you on the floor last night and this morning, how's the year looking? Many of you are saying 23, and with all this economic headline malaise, might even be better than 2022. And yet their margin, Hotstat, CoStar, everybody's margin is up a bit, and there are brand standards that the brands, all of us, began to remove that we haven't necessarily had to come back. Now, certainly in the upper mid-scale, where it's very important to a La guest to have a hot breakfast to drive those, yeah, but there are a lot of standards that we haven't had to go back to that I think is surprising to all of us and to a lot of people in the room.
And housekeeping. I mean, look at housekeeping.
Yeah.
I mean, staying at several full-serve hotels, 2 days, housekeeper never showed up, right? They didn't even ask me if I wanted housekeeping. And I accepted it. It's acceptable.
And that's going to be interesting, what the guest is going to accept and what they're going to start to push back on.
Right.
I think you're starting to see it a little bit.
You are.
Well, I think that's where post-COVID, as people do get out on the road, they're starting to see the lack of spend that took place over the past couple of years. So I think that quality component's going to be a pretty big.
I think to your point, though, and the service point, as ADRs continue to increase, that perception of what the guest expects may change as well. So that's one of the things I've seen, guest expectations, and it's not a surprise, but as ADR goes up, expectations go up. The other thing that really, that I'm seeing is a transfer of assets and a transfer of wealth from one generation to the other. And I'm speaking to the younger generation as well as the older generations of AAHOA members out there. We're seeing, I think, an acceleration of that transfer because the older generations now realize life is short. It's time for the next generation to have their opportunity and chance. So that transfer of wealth, I think, has accelerated. And it almost kind of shows up also with regard to, we after the pandemic, we talked about this pent-up demand. Well, that's gone. I think that now I call it the life experience demand, where people now appreciate that every day is precious. So people are going to travel, they're going to have ADR increases, and there's going to be this transfer of wealth. And it all goes back to this concept of life is so very precious.
Mm-hmm. I think that's where leisure, when I think of what surprises me is that stuck around, that people realize that I can travel for work and then extend and make a longer trip of it, still get some work done remotely, and that's benefited all of us because that means they're staying at a hotel that much longer than they would have before. I thought things would go back more to that Monday through Friday, I'm at home or at my office or whatever working, and then weekends are for weekends, but that has stuck. I don't think it's going away because of what Larry's saying.
That is a real problem. One other thing that would help what Julie's talking about that has surprised me is how slow international inbound travel to this country remains. And to think that in India, you are waiting between 500 and 600 days for a visa is ridiculous. The top 10 countries that want to come into our country, U.S. travel is saying is over a year wait to get a visa. And if there's one thing I would say to Bharat and to AAHOA in terms of the legislative agenda ahead of us in 2023, that should be high on the list, really high on the list. I mean, you have Tony Capuano every time he's on TV talking about this. You have Chris Nassetta, who is so passionate about it that he said he will become the U.S. travel chairman, something he really doesn't have time for. I think he's in India tonight. This is something AAHOA should embrace. That, in terms of getting those visa wait times down, and we are one of the very few countries right now that's requiring a vaccine to get a positive vaccine to get back into this country. Many countries are not. That's something that Chris and U.S. Travel are advocating on. I think AAHOA should be behind it because, to Julie's point, that white-collar business travel is not necessarily coming back to the level it was before. And go ahead, Larry. You want to say something?
They talked about, you get the U.S. travel update like I do, and they talked about business travel not coming back until what year was it as of yesterday?
Right.
2027.
White-collar business travel.
2027, business travel will be back at pre-TAM. That's a long period where we need to make up for it in leisure.
Yep.
And it puts pressure, of course, on midweek business.
Yeah, when you're all up on Capitol Hill, that should be, when you talk to your congressmen and your senators, that should be high on your list. Getting that, and just think about your home country, getting that 500 to 600 days, which is what U.S. Travel is saying the average wait time is in India, down.
You know, that's interesting because do you think if our domestic travel wasn't so strong and our numbers weren't so strong,
Oh my goodness.
that would be such a higher agenda item?
In terms of what this country has continued to lose share since 9/11, if we could ever get back halfway to where we were to 9/11, would be way ahead to where we were in 2019.
Right. Wow.
Well, and travel visas coupled with work visas, I mean, all of those things, we should all align to your point as an industry and just double down on that. I mean, that's going to be so important to help fix the labor shortage, but also important to help with inbound travel. So.
Yeah. You know, there's so much uncertainty out there, but somehow we still keep going and we're getting stronger. So it leads me to my next question. What economic and market factors do you find most worrisome, and what is your company doing about them? Because if we had to really think about all the things that we're worried about, we probably wouldn't get out of bed in the morning.
I mean, short term, we've got the obvious things that we see, right? As far as the cost of debt, labor, you know, inflation, things like that. We just talked about it, the resiliency of the industry. And I think that, when you get past those headlines of the news channels, the fundamentals of the hotel industry are still rock solid. And so if you can, we weather these cycles, we've had them before, and people who really can see the value, they get the deals done. So, as a brand, I think we just have to really walk with those franchisees, those investors, and try to understand, how they're trying to fund their deal, and work with them on understanding the economics of the deal as well as the economics of the long-term play, because it goes way beyond signing on the dotted line. It's how your P&L looks on a regular basis and the margins you're able to draw. And I think that overall that's what's key in an economic environment like we have right now.
The only thing I would say is that the debt markets, if this continues, if this tightening continues, it is going to be problematic for many in the room. Over the course of the next 4 years, I think the number is $50 billion in securitized loans are coming due. So that's the pressure on the ownership. So what do you do when you have a loan that's coming due and the cost of capital is double what it was when you took out that loan, and then you apply things like PIPs and deferred maintenance that we're all dealing with coming out of the pandemic. So although they are kind of the short-term issues, if this monetary policy continues, I think that it is going to cause some real disruption in the marketplace.
And you can see a lot of disconnect out there, between the Fed and the Treasury and what they're wanting to do next. I mean, you can see it on the news this morning. It's like, well, maybe we should pause this time.
I think most investors in this room believe that the interest rates are transitory. And, Keith mentioned a little while ago the importance of the human interaction. And labor, I would guess, if we were to poll this room, is still top of mind for all of us. We know we're short on housekeepers. We're short on front desk agents. And everything that we are working on, I would say, as an industry, has got to be, I know you're not crazy about chat, but
no, I love chat.
We should always be looking for ways to enable the resources that you have to be retained and to stay with you and to be happy and engaged. And whether it's mobile tipping, which you all should be doing for your housekeepers, to increase their retention, increase their satisfaction, increase their pay. Whether it's taking those calls away from your front desk agents and routing them to our professionally run call centers, whether it's mobile check-in or check-out, I'm surprised that more of you are not embracing mobile key and being able to, again, take the pressure off your staff. I think labor is the biggest issue. that we're going to continue to face. We have 500,000 jobs that are not filled in this industry. And there's 2 applicants for every 1 vacancy. It's going to continue to be an issue for us, and we need to continue as brands to figure out ways to take the pressure off so that all of these small business owners' margins, continue to do what they've been doing the last few years and not flatline.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Look,
What is that? Stop kickbacks. Can we give him a microphone? I've always suggested we should do this like Friday's town hall.
Yeah, the only thing I would say on the labor front is that unemployment is at an all-time low at 3 and change, 3.2. In the hospitality business, it is twice that. It's about 5.8. It's about 48% higher than unemployment. So leisure and hospitality has an extremely high employment issue. And although, again, I'm a believer in technology, as long as it's applied in thoughtful places, we really need housekeepers. I mean, we're owners and operators. We have 8,000 employees, of which at any given time, 15% are open and vacant. 15% positions. It's 1,200 positions at any given time. So like you, owners and operators, we can't fill those positions. If we can't fill those positions, we can't get the rooms clean. If we can't get the rooms clean, we can't provide the service, right? So it kind of goes back to the legislation, getting people into this country to fill these positions, because after COVID, people left the industry and they didn't come back. The service workers did not come back.
And going back to sort of your previous question, I mean, what COVID taught us is that as an industry pre-COVID, we were hyper-focused on guest satisfaction, and we should still remain that way, but now we need to be hyper-focused on franchisee satisfaction, employee satisfaction, because we really need to enhance the jobs in the industry through technology, through chat, to really make it an industry people want to be part of. And I think that's going to be the key moving forward.
Can I go back to finance?
Yes, sir. You can do
Labor,
anything you want.
labor,
Totally agree.
absolutely an issue. Finance, though, here's what I would tell our hoteliers. Believe in your banks, but talk to them, okay? You got to talk to them. You got to seek assurances that they're doing okay. Number 2, believe in regional banks. They are part of the foundation of our industry. And while there may be 1 or 2 failures, thankfully the feds came back, backstopped them, helped them through it, but believe in your regional banks. They fund PIPs and new construction. But review your balance sheets. Here's my notes. Collect on aging receivables, seek to extend your payment terms, consider debt extensions, spread your cash, and consider if you have anything over $250,000 in any one bank, put it in a bank that's defined as too big to fail so that you're risk adverse with regard to any regional bank. While you believe in them, hedge on the cautious side.
That's really good advice.
Trust but verify. So this leads to, I think, a very important question. What programs do you have that are helping more women and other underrepresented groups in our industry? Because that is something that we're seeing more of, but really, I think, in some areas, not as much as we should be seeing.
Sure, I'll take that one. So Red Roof was one of the first in the industry to come up with a women entrepreneurial program to help women learn and grow in the industry. We just recently rebranded that to She Leads, Support, Help, and Elevate Women. And then most recently, I know many of you are aware, we hired Lena Patel as Director of Franchise Strategic Initiatives. And her sole goal is to help Red Roof grow its Women in Ownership program and underserved markets as well. When we started this in 2016, we were in the teens, percentage-wise, of women-owned or partially owned hotels. I'm proud to say today we're up to 35%.
Wow.
Our goal was to hit 40, but we've seen such growth in that, we're now looking to try to get 50%. Women-owned or partially owned hotels. It's a very exciting initiative.
That's great. Yeah, we launched the Light Her Way program. It's similar, I'm sure, to some degree, but very much not just incentive-based, but really walking along with women to help them understand the whole process, right? It's how to find the right property, the investment process, the banking process. Operations, I will say, I was at, years ago, at a regional AAHOA event, women's event. I was amazed at the women are the backbone to the hotels at a lot of these. It was amazing. They're eager, they're hungry, they've got great questions. I mean, they don't hold back and, oh, I already know that. I mean, they're like ready to go. And so it's really just been a great program, and really we've kind of morphed it into like the way, so that it's really targeted to the Latino community, the African American community, any of the underserved communities when you look at the hotel industry. So
I love that
lots
name.
of success there.
Light the Way is a great name, and you've got a George.
We leave the light on for you, Geoff.
There you go. I love it. So ours, I'm just looking at Trusha Patel, who helped us launch. Trusha, Women Own the Room. We're having an event tomorrow afternoon. It was last year, a year ago, at Alice, where Trusha helped us kick it off. We've executed now we've awarded over 24 women-owned and developed hotels. We've opened now a dozen women-owned the room hotels. So many great stories. If we had more time, I'd love to tell you about my favorite. And we're doing the same thing for Black owners and lodging developers. And Andy Ingram, who's somewhere here in the room, helped us kick off our Black owners and lodging developers a year ago, and we have awarded a dozen and opened 2 now, which is really exciting. But whether it's what AAHOA is doing, whether it's what AAHOA is doing with Forward, another great initiative. I think you're the keynote, Julia. Is that correct? At this year's
I'm on
Forward?
a panel at Forward. Yes,
Yes.
I am.
No, you are the keynote this year. It's amazing, Anthony, how far this industry has come in a very short period of time in terms of using our balance sheet, using our training, using our resources, providing things to women and Black-owned developers that we ordinarily have not done before. And hats off to Julie for lighting.
How proud are
lighting the
you
way.
that we're on a panel with a woman CEO?
We all agree, George. We'd never
We're
do
tired
a
of
panel
the white
without
guy
Julie.
panels.
Wherever we go.
You know where they say
More
what
Julies.
you focus on gets done, right? Larry?
So we have a program as well, Team Up. It's about development, incentives, see me, I'll give you cash. And, but it's also about mentorship after the acquisition. That's what's also truly important to us, is not just saying, here's the deal, we'll help you, but then helping post-acquisition. And something else that I think is really important, every member of the leadership team at Best Western has on their scorecard, and this is a quote, "I will foster and promote a workplace culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging." Because you have to set that culture of inclusion, not just have a program, right? It's everybody has to believe in it. And so it's on their scorecard. I expect them to remember that on a daily basis, that is a part of our culture, not just a program.
And I think that that's so true. When you work on something and you put it in a book, you put it on a folder, and you put it on a desk, people forget. When you're walking it every day, and that's really the only way to grow and to improve. So talking about, we have 2 minutes and 24 seconds apparently. The last question. What message do you have for new owners? How many new owners are in the of hotels are in the audience? Any new? No? Wow. So
Where's that transfer of wealth I spoke about?
Holding their coffee.
Come on, you gotta get dad and mom to give you that asset.
So what do you have for, to say to new owners and new employees coming into this industry? You know, I say it all the time, there's never been a better opportunity to grow in this industry. So advice, anyone?
Yeah, I mean, I worked full-time when I was going to Ohio State University, 2.5 years at a full-service hotel. I started in this industry. It's a great entry-level industry to get started in, and the growth potential is exceptional. And look, I mean, I took a small detour to go to law school, which maybe was a mistake, but then I made it all the way to here. So excited. I mean, it's an exciting industry with lots of opportunities, and now's the best time to get involved for sure.
I think you said it right. There's so many avenues. Like people think operations, and I'm a finance background. There's the legal side of things. There's marketing and branding and franchising and ownership and operations. And it's just a fantastic industry to grow in. I think, economy lodging I love because people are able to come in and see every facet of the hotel. Yeah. They're not just the front desk per se. They can really, see the breadth of the hotel, and it's a great, stepping stone, or it's a great part of the portfolio. I think that there's just endless opportunity for anyone who, wants to move up quickly, frankly.
And I would say build relationships.
Yeah.
These are long-lasting relationships. I mean, I worked for this fine gentleman here for many years, and now I'm sitting next to him on the panel. So it's a small industry, and build those strong relationships, whether it's with your regional banker, whether it's with your neighbor, your brands, your family. Build your strong relationships.
Anyone else?
I went down the path of I want you all to own hotels. So here's my advice. Be bold, but do your homework. Ensure every project has a feasibility study and you know what you're getting into before you can truly believe in that project and that asset. Be well capitalized. If you're buying a hotel, inspect it well. Consider a third party to do your due diligence. Don't be enamored by it just because of what it may look like. Dig deep. Ask to see the hotel's balance sheet. And don't become due diligence biased. Don't think because you've started due diligence, you've got to finish it. Make a strong, well-known, thoughtful decision at closing, whether you want to go forward with it, and you'll have our back. We'll have your back. Excuse me.
Wow, what great advice.
I would, Anthony has a new book coming out. Is it in 2 weeks called Show Up? What's that book about, Anthony?
Show up, 5 steps of getting out of your own way. And then one of the things that we talk, first of all, thank you for mentioning it. One of the things that we're talking about here, I think everyone spoke about, is getting out of your own way, whether it be technology, whether it be talking to your banker, whether it be, I thought, great advice of using technology to help your employee, not encumber your employee, because the more pressure we take off of the employee, the better your hotel will operate. And the book really tells about stories that where I've been successful and how I showed up for myself, and sometimes where I stood up for myself, where I probably should have shut up for myself and got myself in a little bit of trouble.
One of the stories you told us yesterday was about a student of yours who has moved from valet to assistant manager of Aria Hotel?
Yeah, so I mentor a lot of kids, but I mentor this kid that worked in my neighborhood hotel, brand new hotel, and he just showed, he did a little, as they say in the military, do a little more, you'll go a lot further. And he went from valet, he worked at the Garden City Hotel, and then I realized he really had it. And I said, okay, what do you want to do? So I sat down with him and his family, and I said, where do you want to go? I know people, I can put you anywhere in the world. And and I said, how about Vegas? And his father's like, and he goes, Vegas? So he went out to Vegas, he worked at MGM as a front desk clerk, and he is now, at 22 years old, an assistant manager at the Aria 5-star hotel.
That's amazing.
And that's what this industry does for people.
Yep, just show up.
That's what this industry does.
And that's what happened with George. And I would say, I mean, all of us up here have great stories. I've gone from a dishwasher to a busboy to a waiter to, I think the best job out there for young people, any students in the room, is general manager. Any of you GMs?
No GM. No.
You're a GM of some great hotels. Everybody wants to do something fun and sexy, and they want to be in real estate. They want to be investment banking. The operational credibility, as you know, Anthony, will take you places. But most importantly, all of us in this room have a responsibility to tell that story that you're talking about with that valet, to tell the story about what a great industry this is. And I think the best way that we all could do that is to contribute to the scholarships of our industry's associations. Andy has a scholarship that needs money. AHNLA has a scholarship that needs, the foundation is doing unbelievable work attracting minorities. There is nothing my wife and I are more proud of giving than these scholarships. I don't know if AAHOA, but we all have a responsibility. We need more talent in this industry. We need more stories like you're telling. We need people to believe that this industry is the best place on the planet.
There's not a better one in the world. I believe that. Well, thank you to our panelists.
Thank you, guys.
You did that. Thank you very much.